In this video, we're going to install Plex on a Raspberry Pi 3. I've got a couple of external drives hooked via USB to this Raspberry. So let's go over and take a look at an FDisk output of what we got. Let's focus on dev/SDB, and it's basically a drive that's came out of a laptop that I've repurposed. So we can do an fdisk/dev/SDB. It's a 1 TB drive, so that we can use fdisk on this. If it's bigger than 2 TB, you're going to have to use a different program like Parted. So we're just going to go through and hit D for delete and delete all the partitions that are on the drive currently. Looks like there's about 7 of them. Once they're all deleted, then we print the partition table, and there is none, of course. So now we're going to hit N for new and create one partition and basically accept the defaults. We want to remove the signature, which is an NTFS signature, since it was a Windows laptop before. And now we're going to write all this to the disk. Now if we do an fdisk-l, we're going to see that there's a dev/SDB1. That's the drive I've previously done. So yeah, SDB1. So let's go over now and prepare the file system, so we can do make fs.ext4, which is the type of file system we want on this drive, and do a /dev/SDB1. And now let's create the directories for mount points. So we're going to do a cdvar/plex. That will probably not exist. You'll probably need to make the plex directory, but I'm sorry I did not show that under var. And so I'm just going to make a couple of subdirectories, one called video01 and one called training01. And that's going to be my 2 mount points for my 2 external drives. So now that I've got those made, let's go to the FS tab, which is the file that's read when the machine boots up to know which file systems to mount. And so we're just going to define our dev SDA1, and we're going to mount it at /var/plex/videos_01. It's an ext4 file system. We're going to mount it with the defaults. We're going to add the no A time, which is basically we're not going to record when we access the files. We're not going to write that information to the contents of the drive. That makes it basically faster. The only thing you lose there is you can't look at the directories and tell when the last time the file was accessed, which in this case it's videos, and we're just looking for speed, and so it's good to just turn that off. And those last numbers is basically when to tell it to check the file system for just do routine file checks. So if we do a mount-A, it should mount everything. It's in our FS tab, and we were successful. We see those 2 that are mounted. So let's go over to the website devtoday.de/projects, and basically what this is somebody that set up a repository for Debian that's specific to the Raspberry Pis, and so they're going to make it easy for us to install Plex on these things. Basically, you've got 2 blocks of directions, one for a 32-bit and one for a 64-bit. Since the Raspberries at this point is still running a 32-bit OS, then we're going to follow those directions. So you can copy that block to a notepad or copy and paste those commands into your terminal one at a time. And so we're just going to type them out so that I can kind of explain what we're doing here as things go on. So we're going to use a program called wget, which is basically just a file utility where we can get files over the internet. We can also use it as a crude web browser, if you will. So we're going to get the GPG key, which is the key that the repository is going to check to make sure that it's a safe and trusted repository. So we're going to add that into our apt key database. And now let's create a new source with this dev.de repository, and that's basically going to give us a new place to install software from. So we're just going to echo this line to a new file called pms.list. And so if we look in the directory that houses all these sources, the etc apt sources list.d, we're going to see the raspi.list that was already in there, and then we're going to see a new file, pms.list, which is here we are here. We see that our one line is in there as it needs to be. So this is, since this is a secure repository, we want to make sure that apt is able to transfer over HTTPS. So we'll do apt get install apt-transport-https, and we see that that's already installed, so that's just a good idea to do. Next thing is do an apt get update, and that's going to refresh all the files that are available in all the repositories, so that when we do get ready to install software, we've basically got a list of all the packages that are available. And so now we're going to do the actual install. So we're going to do an apt-get install Plex media server -installer, and that will install the Plex server along with any dependencies that is required. And then once that is done, we should get a status message back on whether the installation was successful. Right now it's finishing up one of the dependency installs. So we can see here that the name of the service is Plex Media Server. So we can look at that by doing systemctl space status space Plex Media Server, and we see that it is indeed running. So we should be in good shape there. If we want to look at it from a task perspective to make sure that it's running with under a particular service, or see which username it's running under, we can do a ps-aux, and we see that the Plex Media Server process is running under the user Plex, which most likely that means that there's also going to be a group named Plex. So we're going to go over and change the owner of our /var/Plex directory to the user Plex, so that the Plex server can read and write to the files. And you can see that it was owned by root, now it's owned by Plex. And so the last thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our Pi user can, let's log, so we did a -r, and so that will do a recursive change owner. So we've got the two directories under it that also is owned by Plex, which is good. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our Pi user is in the Plex group, and that'll give us permissions to do secure file transfers to the Plex directory so that we can add our videos via SCP. So we want to do an add user Pi to the group Plex, and now that we've done that, then we're now a member of that directory. So the last thing we want to do is we want to change the group permissions to allow us to do a write. So if we just do a chmod 77, or excuse me, a -r for recursive 774, and we're going to do it on /var/Plex. And if we look at that now, you can see that the owner has read write execute, and then the group has read write execute. I didn't show that before, but previously the group just had read permissions, and so that prevented me from being able to copy a file over to this Plex videos directory. So now if we try to drop a file over you can see that it did copy. I was logged in with my Pi user ID, which again is the default user that comes with in the operating system. So now we're going to go to the website, which is going to be the IP address and colon 32400, and it's going to ask us then to sign on to the Plex website. If you don't have a Plex account, you can just create one, and it's free. There's a Plex Pass, which is a paid upgrade option that gives you plenty more features that you most likely will want at some point, so you can read over that. But for now, we're just going to cancel out of that. So it found the server service running, so we're just going to name it some sort of friendly name and click on Next. And then the next screen is going to basically allow us to add media, add our media drives that we added. I'm going to skip over that for now because we can add that later. And the next thing we're going to do is just do a done. And once we do that, then we're just going to do, oh yeah, so the Get Plex apps, that's at the end. It's going to allow us to go there and get an app. And essentially, to test this, we would just want to install the Plex Media Player for Windows. So I've selected Windows as my platform, and I'm just going to download the 64-bit player and install that on my machine that I'm working from, which is a Windows 10 machine. So this is going to come up. I'm going to click install. It's going to go through the installation here. I'll save you from most of those details as far as just waiting for status bars. You do have to reboot, unfortunately. I'll save you from that as well. So now after a reboot, you can launch this thing, and it looks basically just like the website does when you go to the local site via web browser. So we're going to go over here to add library, and this is the part we skipped before, and we can just click on other videos. I've got some home videos I want to add, so I'm just going to call this thing videos. Click next, and then we'll browse for that media folder, and there's the two drives that that I've got. One's that var plex videos 01. So I'm taking that directory and associating it with something I call videos. And so it found that one video that I've transferred into there, and lo and behold, here's the home video that I made with my camera phone. So there we have it.